The great hall of the United Species Assembly stretched for miles in every direction, and its ceiling disappeared into darkness far above where any eye could see. Thousands of alien delegates filled the floating platforms that hovered throughout the massive chamber, and today every single one of them had come to witness history being made. High Arbiter Zixthil of the Velkorian Empire stood at the central podium, his tall gray body wrapped in ceremonial armor that had been worn by conquerors for 10,000 years. His four eyes scanned the crowd with absolute confidence, and his sharp teeth gleamed under the bright lights as he prepared to speak the words that would change the galaxy forever. Fellow members of the Galactic Dominion, his voice boomed through the translation systems that carried his words to all 47 species present. For 1,000 years we have honored the Treaty of Silence with the humans of Earth. For 1,000 years we have allowed them to exist in their small corner of space, believing that peace was the noble path. But I stand before you today to declare that this mercy was a mistake. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as delegates leaned forward in anticipation. The Velkorians had always been the most powerful species in the Dominion, and when they spoke, others listened with great attention. Humanity has grown weak and lazy behind their protected borders. Zixthil continued with growing passion in his voice. They play with their simple technologies, while we have advanced beyond their comprehension. They number merely billions, while we command trillions. The time has come to claim what should have always belonged to the Dominion. He raised his four-fingered hand high above his head in a dramatic gesture that his people had used for centuries when declaring war. As High Arbiter of the Velkorian Empire and Supreme Commander of the Dominion Fleet, I hereby declare the Treaty of Silence void and broken. From this moment forward, a state of war exists between the Galactic Dominion and the human species. We shall bring them into our fold, whether they wish it or not. The assembly erupted in a mixture of cheers and nervous whispers. Some species had always hungered for human territory and resources, while others remembered ancient stories about human ferocity that made them uneasy. But none dared to openly oppose the Velkorians, for their fleet was the largest and most powerful force in known space. Ambassador Thelvok of the Krethian Collective, a small blueskin being known for his expertise on human affairs, approached Zixthil after the declaration ceremony had ended. His large eyes blinked rapidly with what might have been concern. "High Arbiter, I must express some caution," Thelvok said in his high-pitched voice. "It has been a very long time since anyone has had direct contact with the humans. Our information about their current capabilities may not be complete." Zixthil laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. He looked down at the smaller alien, with amusement dancing in all four of his eyes. "What is there to worry about, Ambassador? When we last assessed them, humans were barely capable of traveling between their own stars. They fought among themselves constantly and nearly destroyed their own planet multiple times. They are a chaotic and primitive species that poses no real threat to our combined might. But 1,000 years is a long time." Thelvok pressed nervously. "Species can change significantly in such a period. Perhaps we should send scouts first to—" "Enough." Zixthil cut him off with a wave of his hand. "I have already ordered the invasion fleet to assemble. 200,000 warships from across the Dominion will gather at the border within 30 rotations. This will be the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, and it will crush any resistance the humans can offer." The declaration was broadcast across all frequencies, sent racing through space at faster-than-light speeds toward every human colony and outpost. The Dominion wanted humanity to know what was coming, wanted them to feel fear and despair before the first shot was even fired. On Earth, in a modest office overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Lydia Chun received the transmission while enjoying her morning coffee. She was a woman in her early 60s, with gray streaks in her black hair and calm eyes that had seen many things in her long career. Her aide, a young man named James, rushed into the room with panic on his face. "Admiral, we have received a transmission from the Galactic Dominion," he said breathlessly. "They have declared war. Their entire fleet is mobilizing. This is exactly what the protocols warned us about." Admiral Chun took another slow sip of her coffee and turned to look at the screen where Zixthel's recorded message was playing. She watched the alien warlord make his threats and promises of conquest with an expression that James could not quite read. Was that worry on her face or something else entirely? "Get me the Council of Elders," she said in a voice as calm as a still lake. "Tell them it is finally happening. Use the priority channel." "Yes, Admiral, right away." James nodded and rushed to comply, but then he paused at the door with a confused look. "Admiral, forgive me for asking, but why do you seem so calm? This is an invasion force of 200,000 ships. How can we possibly stand against such numbers?" Admiral Chun set down her coffee cup and smiled, actually smiled, and the expression sent a strange shiver down James's spine. "Lieutenant, do you know why the Treaty of Silence was signed 1,000 years ago? Do you know why we agreed to stay hidden away in our little corner of space? To protect ourselves from the more advanced alien species," James answered, reciting what he had learned in school, "because we were too weak to fight them directly." "That is what the history books say." Chun nodded slowly. "But the history books do not tell the whole story. Nobody alive today, except the elders, knows the real truth. But I suppose you will find out soon enough, along with the rest of the galaxy." She stood and walked to her window, gazing out at the beautiful blue ocean that stretched to the horizon. Somewhere out there in the depths of space, an alien armada was preparing to destroy everything she loved. And yet she could not stop the small chuckle that escaped her lips. Across human space, in bars and living rooms and military stations on dozens of worlds, humans received the news of the Dominion's declaration. They watched the alien warlord promise their destruction with his 4 gleaming eyes and his sharp predator teeth. They saw the images of massive warships gathering at the border. And they laughed. Not nervous laughter, not hysterical laughter born from fear. This was genuine amusement, the kind of laughter shared between friends who knew a secret that nobody else understood. In a retirement home on Mars, an old veteran turned to his equally old wife with a grin spreading across his wrinkled face. "Well, honey," he said, "I guess our grandchildren are finally going to learn what their great-great-great-grandparents really did during the quiet millennium." The war had been declared, and humanity was ready. They had been ready for a very, very long time. Deep within the command center of the Valkyrian flagship Eternal Conquest, Ambassador Thelvok stood before a massive, holographic display and prepared to give his intelligence briefing to the assembled War Council. Dozens of military commanders from various Dominion species sat in tiered seating around him, their alien eyes fixed on his small blue form with hungry anticipation. "Honored commanders," Thelvok began, his voice slightly trembling, as it always did when he spoke to such powerful beings. "I have compiled all available intelligence on the human species and their current military capabilities. Please direct your attention to the display." The hologram flickered to life, showing a rotating image of Earth, a small blue and green planet that looked peaceful and fragile against the darkness of space. The humans originated on this world approximately 300,000 standard years ago. They developed spaceflight technology roughly 1,100 years ago, just before the Treaty of Silence was established. At that time, they had expanded to approximately 40 colony worlds within their immediate stellar neighborhood. High Arbiter Zixthel leaned forward with interest. This was exactly what he wanted to hear. "Our most recent reliable data suggests a total human population of approximately 12 billion individuals across their territories," Thelvok continued. "Their military forces consist of roughly 5,000 combat vessels. ranging from small patrol craft to medium-sized battlecruisers. Their weapons technology relies primarily on primitive kinetic projectiles and basic directed energy weapons. A ripple of confident laughter spread through the assembled commanders. 5,000 ships against 200,000 seemed like such a ridiculous mismatch that some wondered why they were bothering with such a large invasion force. Their defensive capabilities are equally modest, Thelvok said as he changed the display to show technical readouts. Standard electromagnetic shielding with limited energy absorption capacity. Their armor is composed of simple metallic alloys reinforced with basic carbon structures. Nothing that our weapons cannot penetrate with ease. General Vrax of the Thornian Dominion, a massive creature covered in natural bone armor, slammed his fist on his console with satisfaction. "This will be a slaughter," he growled in his deep rumbling voice. "My warriors grow bored with peace. They hunger for battle and glory. The humans will provide excellent sport before they are conquered." Indeed, Zixthel agreed with a predatory smile. But let us not become overconfident. Ambassador, what do we know of human psychology and their likely response to our invasion? Thelvok switched to a new display showing images and videos from human history wars. Conflicts, acts of violence that span their entire existence as a species. Humans are known for their aggression and unpredictability. During their pre-spaceflight era, they engaged in near-constant warfare amongst themselves. They developed weapons capable of destroying their entire civilization multiple times over. Psychologically, they are prone to both irrational courage and irrational fear. So they will fight, Admiral Kethra of the Serpentine Fleet said thoughtfully, her long, scaled body coiling around her command chair. But their fighting will be desperate and futile. Cornered animals often bite, but that does not make them dangerous to a superior predator. Precisely, Thelvok nodded. We expect initial resistance to be fierce, but ultimately pointless. Once the humans realize the scope of our military advantage, their leaders will likely sue for peace. They are a practical species when survival is at stake. What Ambassador Thelvok did not know, what nobody in the Dominion could possibly know, was that every single piece of information in his briefing was completely and utterly wrong. The intelligence he relied upon was 1,000 years old, gathered in the brief period before the Treaty of Silence had sealed human space away from outside observation. No Dominion spy had successfully penetrated human territory since then. No Dominion sensor had scanned a human world. No Dominion ship had come close enough to see what humanity had truly become. The Treaty of Silence had not been a mercy granted by the Dominion to a weaker species. It had been a request made by humanity itself, a request backed by a demonstration of power so terrifying that the Dominion leaders of that era had agreed immediately, and then buried all records of what they had witnessed. Those leaders were long dead now, and with them died the truth. The new generation of Dominion rulers knew only the official story, the comfortable lie that made them feel superior and safe. Far away from the Dominion War Council, in a hidden chamber beneath the mountains of Earth, the Council of Elders gathered around their own holographic display. These 12 individuals looked young and healthy, but their eyes held the weight of centuries. Elder Yuki Tanaka, appearing as a woman in her 30s with smooth skin and black hair, watched the Dominion's fleet movements with something like sadness in her expression. "They really have forgotten," she said softly. "They have no idea what they are walking into. I had hoped that some record might have survived, some warning that would make them reconsider." Elder Marcus Webb, a tall man with kind eyes and a gentle smile, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We gave them 1,000 years of peace," he reminded her. "We could not control what they chose to do with that time. If they had used it to grow and learn as we did, perhaps this day would never have come. But they used it to build bigger weapons and dream of conquest." "The irony is painful," Elder Chen Wei added. stroking his short gray beard thoughtfully. They believe we are weak because we chose not to fight. They see our peace as evidence of inferiority. They cannot imagine that a species might be strong enough to choose gentleness. The holographic display shifted to show humanity's true territory, not 40 worlds, but over 4,000. Not 12 billion souls, but more than 900 trillion. Not 5,000 ships, but millions upon millions of vessels that made the Dominion's Grand Armada look like a child's toy fleet. We did not hide because we were afraid of them, Elder Tanaka said, as she gazed upon the vast human civilization that had grown in secret. We hid because we were afraid of ourselves. We knew what we were capable of, and we knew that we needed time to become worthy of such power. And now, Elder Webb asked the question that hung in the air. Are we worthy? Have we grown enough? Can we face this test without becoming the monsters we once feared we might become? The council sat in contemplative silence. 1,000 years ago, humanity had been violent and reckless, drunk on their own potential and dangerous to everyone including themselves. They had needed the peace not to hide from aliens, but to hide from their own worst impulses while they learned to be better. Now that peace was ending, and the galaxy would finally see what humanity had become during their long millennium of quiet growth. We are ready, Elder Tanaka declared with quiet confidence. Not because we have built the biggest weapons, though we have. Not because we have conquered death and disease, though we have. We are ready because we have finally learned the most important lesson. And what lesson is that? A younger elder asked with curiosity. Tanaka smiled, and in that smile was both warmth and sorrow, strength and gentleness combined. That true power is not the ability to destroy your enemies. It is the ability to turn them into friends. The Dominion is about to learn that lesson, whether they want to or not. The war was coming, but humanity would fight it in a way the galaxy had never seen before. The Dominion invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system in perfect formation, and it was a sight that would have terrified any species in the known galaxy. 200,000 warships of every size and design stretched across the void like a cloud of angry metal locusts, their weapons charged and their crews eager for conquest. High Arbiter Zixthal stood on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, his 4 eyes drinking in the sensor readings with deep satisfaction. Before him lay Earth, the homeworld of humanity, the prize he had come to claim. All ships report ready for combat, his tactical officer announced. We detect no enemy vessels in the immediate vicinity. It appears the humans have chosen not to defend their own system. Laughter rippled through the bridge crew. What kind of species would abandon their homeworld without even a token resistance? The humans were even more pathetic than their intelligence had suggested. Perhaps they have fled, General Vrax suggested over the fleet communication channel. His bone-armored face twisted into a sneer. Perhaps they saw our fleet and ran away like the cowards they truly are. But Ambassador Thelvak, watching from his observer station, felt a strange uneasiness crawling up his spine. Something about this situation felt wrong. Why would the humans not even attempt to defend themselves? It made no tactical sense. High Arbiter, a sensor technician called out suddenly, a voice carrying a note of confusion. I am detecting a single vessel approaching our position. It appears to be coming from the inner system. A single vessel, Zixthal repeated with amusement. Show me. The main display flickered to life, and there it was, a small ship, barely larger than a shuttle, drifting toward the massive invasion fleet like a leaf floating toward a hurricane. It was smooth and white, without any visible weapons or markings, and it moved with a strange grace that seemed almost peaceful. That is their defense, Admiral Kethra hissed with disbelief from her own flagship, one tiny ship against our armada. Are they mocking us? Before anyone could respond, the little ship broadcast a message that played across every communication system in the fleet. "This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Terran vessel General Reminder," a calm male voice said pleasantly. "You have entered restricted space without authorization. This is your first and only warning. Please reverse course and retreat to your own territory, or we will be forced to respond. We really would prefer to handle this peacefully." Stunned silence fell across the Dominion fleet. Was this human actually asking them to leave? Was this some kind of joke? Zixthal's 4 eyes narrowed with fury at the insult. Did this single human truly believe he could stop 200,000 warships with polite words and a ship smaller than most escape pods? "Human," Zixthal replied, his voice dripping with contempt. "I am High Arbiter Zixthal of the Velkorian Empire, Supreme Commander of the Galactic Dominion. Your pathetic warning means nothing to us. Surrender now, or watch your world burn." "Ah, that is unfortunate," Captain Webb responded. And there was something in his tone, not fear, not anger, but something that sounded almost like disappointment. "I was really hoping you would choose the peaceful option. It would have made things so much simpler." "All ships," Zixthal commanded with savage satisfaction. "Open fire. Destroy that arrogant fool." 20,000 ships fired simultaneously at the Gentle Reminder. Plasma bolts, energy beams, kinetic projectiles, and missiles of every type streaked through space toward the tiny vessel. The combined firepower was enough to crack a moon, enough to devastate entire continents, enough to turn any ship into dust. The bridge crew of the Eternal Conquest watched their sensors, waiting for the flash of destruction, waiting for the satisfaction of watching human arrogance be punished. But the flash never came. The weapon's fire simply stopped in mid-space, hanging motionless like stars frozen in time. Energy beams that should have traveled at the speed of light stood still. Missiles that should have been moving at thousands of kilometers per second just floated there, suspended by some impossible force. Then, gently, peacefully, all that destructive energy simply faded away into nothing, dissolving like morning mist under a warm sun. "What?" Zixthal whispered, his 4 eyes wide with something he had never felt before: true fear. "I am sorry about this." Captain Webb's voice came again, still calm, still kind, as if he were apologizing for a minor inconvenience. "But I did warn you. Now I need to show you something, just so we understand each other." The Gentle Reminder flickered. That was the only word for it, and then 47 Dominion warships simply vanished. One ship from each member species of the Dominion, there one moment and gone the next, as if they had never existed at all. Screams of confusion and terror erupted across the fleet communication channels. Commanders demanded to know what had happened. Sensor officers insisted their equipment must be malfunctioning. Nothing could make ships simply disappear. "Please do not worry." Captain Webb's voice cut through the chaos with reassuring calm. "Those ships were not destroyed. We transported their crews to safety first, and then we moved the empty vessels to a secure location. Nobody has been harmed. We did not want to hurt anyone." The Gentle Reminder flickered again, and suddenly Captain Webb was standing on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, as if he had always been there. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a gentle smile, wearing a simple white uniform, and he showed no fear whatsoever despite being surrounded by armed Velkorian warriors. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance," Webb said pleasantly as guards raised their weapons at him, "but I needed to get your attention. You see, High Arbiter, there has been a terrible misunderstanding." "Kill him," Zixthal screamed, and a dozen energy weapons fired at the human from point-blank range. The beams passed through Webb as if he were made of smoke, leaving him completely untouched. He sighed and shook his head with what looked like genuine sadness. "Please stop trying to kill me. It will not work, and it is really quite rude. Now, I need you to look at your sensors again, because there is something else you should see." Despite his terror, Zixthel turned to look at the main display, and his heart nearly stopped. Ships were appearing throughout the system, emerging from some kind of hidden dimension, filling space with more vessels than his mind could process. Millions of ships, each one larger than the biggest Dominion dreadnought, each one radiating power that made his own weapons seem like toys. The human fleet surrounded the Dominion armada completely, outnumbering them by a factor of hundreds, outclassing them by a factor of infinity. "You are not trapped in here with us," Webb said softly, echoing words that had been spoken in human conflicts for thousands of years. "You are trapped in here with us. But please understand, we do not want to trap you. We do not want to destroy you. We wanted to talk." Zixthel stared at the human, at the impossible fleet, at the wreckage of everything he thought he knew about the universe. "What are you?" he whispered. Captain Webb smiled, and in that smile was 1,000 years of growth, of change, of hope. "We are humanity," he said simply, "and we have been waiting a very long time to make some new friends." The great chamber on Earth was built into the heart of a mountain, its walls carved from living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. High Arbiter Zixthel stood at its center, surrounded by representatives from all 47 Dominion species, and for the first time in his long life, he felt truly small. The 12 members of the Council of Elders sat in a semicircle before them, and despite their young appearances, their eyes held depths that made even the oldest Dominion delegates feel like children. These beings had lived for over 1,000 years, had seen empires rise and fall, had watched their species transform from violent children into something far greater. Elder Yuki Tanaka rose from her seat and walked toward the gathered aliens with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. She smiled warmly, and somehow that smile made the situation feel less terrifying. "Please, do not be afraid," she said gently. "We have brought you here to explain, not to punish. You declared war on us because you did not understand what we had become. That misunderstanding was partly our own fault, and we wish to correct it." "How?" Zixthel managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. "How is any of this possible? 1,000 years ago, you were primitive. You were barely capable of interstellar travel. How did you become this?" Tanaka gestured, and the air around them filled with holographic images, a visual history of humanity's secret millennium. 1,000 years ago, we were exactly what you thought we were." She began as images of ancient human wars flickered past. Violent, reckless, dangerous to ourselves and everyone around us. We had discovered the basic principles of advanced technology, and we were terrified of what we might do with that knowledge. The images showed human scientists making discoveries that bent the laws of physics. Human engineers building weapons that could shatter planets. Human leaders arguing about whether to use such power for conquest. "We stood at a crossroads," Tanaka continued with sadness in her voice. "We could see 2 possible futures stretching before us. In one future, we used our growing power to dominate the galaxy, to crush all who opposed us, to become the very monsters that your species feared us to be." Ambassador Thelvok shuddered as he watched images of that possible future human warships burning across the stars. Alien worlds conquered and enslaved, a galaxy ruled by human tyranny. But in the other future, Tanaka's voice grew warm with hope. "We chose a different path. We chose to stop, to wait, to grow. We asked ourselves a question that changed everything. What kind of species do we want to be?" The images shifted to show humans building hidden colonies, creating technologies beyond imagination, but also sitting in councils, debating philosophy, teaching their children values of compassion and wisdom. "We requested the Treaty of Silence not because we were weak." Elder Marcus Webb spoke up, the same man who had faced the Dominion fleet in his tiny ship. "We requested it because we were dangerous. We needed time to become worthy of our own power. We needed to evolve not just our technology, but our hearts. During the quiet millennium, Tanaka resumed, we conquered death itself. Every human who wishes to can now live indefinitely. We mastered energy and matter at the fundamental level. We learned to fold space, to travel anywhere instantly, to reshape reality according to our will. The alien delegates stared in stunned silence as they watched images of human achievements that seemed more like magic than science. Ships that could cross the galaxy in seconds. Medical technology that could cure any disease. Energy sources that were practically unlimited. But more importantly, Tanaka emphasized with passion, we learned something far more valuable than any technology. We learned that true strength is not the ability to destroy. True strength is the ability to choose not to. You could have conquered us at any time, Zixthel realized, his voice hollow with shock. You could have swept across the galaxy and crushed every species in your path. With power like this, nothing could have stopped you. Nothing except ourselves, Webb nodded. And that is exactly the point. We had to learn to stop ourselves. We had to become a species that would not abuse such power. That took time, patience, and a willingness to look at our own darkest impulses. But why reveal this now? Admiral Kethra asked, her serpentine body coiled tight with confusion. Why not continue hiding? Why show us the truth after we declared war on you? Elder Chen Wei stepped forward, his ancient eyes filled with something that looked like hope. Because hiding was only ever meant to be temporary, he explained. We always intended to rejoin the galactic community once we had grown enough. We were waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity. And our declaration of war gave you that opportunity, Thelvok said slowly as understanding dawned. Precisely, Tanaka smiled. You see, we face a difficult problem. How do you make friends when you are so powerful that everyone is terrified of you? How do you offer partnership when others might see it as a trap? You needed us to see your strength first, Zixthel said, the pieces falling into place in his mind, so that when you offered peace instead of destruction, we would know it was a genuine choice. When a weak species offers peace, others may see it as surrender, Webb agreed. But when a powerful species offers peace, that is something entirely different. That is mercy. That is wisdom. That is exactly the kind of offer we wanted to make. What do you want from us? General Vrax asked, his aggressive nature subdued for once by the weight of what he was witnessing. The 12 elders exchanged glances, and something passed between them, 1,000 years of shared hope and shared dreams. We want to help you, Tanaka said simply. We want to share our knowledge, our technology, our wisdom. We want to see your species grow and flourish. We want to build something beautiful together, not an empire based on fear and conquest, but a community based on cooperation and mutual respect. We waited 1,000 years for this moment, Webb added, his voice thick with emotion. 1,000 years of hoping that when the time came, we would be wise enough to extend our hand in friendship instead of raising it in anger. Today, that hope becomes reality. Zixthel felt something shift inside him, the warrior's pride that had driven him to declare war crumbling in the face of something he had never encountered before. These humans had every right to destroy the Dominion for its aggression, and instead they offered gifts. Why? He asked, the question carrying all his confusion and wonder. Why would you do this for us? Elder Yuki Tanaka smiled, and in that smile was the answer to his question and the key to everything humanity had learned during their long millennium of growth. Because 1,000 years ago, we chose to become the species we wished had existed when we were young and frightened and alone, she said softly. We chose to become the helpers, the teachers, the friends. We chose to become what every young species deserves to find among the stars, not conquerors, but guides. Not enemies, but family. The war was over before it had truly begun, and something far greater was about to take its place. The United Species Assembly had never seen anything like this. The same great hall that had witnessed the declaration of war now witnessed something far more significant, the birth of a new era for the entire galaxy. Admiral Lydia Chun stood at the central podium where High Arbiter Zixthel had stood just weeks before, but her posture and her words carried none of his aggression. She looked out at the thousands of alien delegates with warmth in her eyes and hope in her heart. "Citizens of the Galactic Dominion," she began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber through translation systems that made her words understood by all. "You expected this day to end with our surrender. You expected to see humanity brought low, conquered, absorbed into your empire as servants." Nervous shuffling rippled through the assembly as delegates remembered their assumptions and feared what might come next. Surely humanity would demand revenge for the insult of the invasion. Surely there would be a price to pay for their arrogance. "But we are not here to demand your surrender," Chun continued, and surprise replaced fear on alien faces throughout the chamber. "We are not here to punish you for your mistakes. We are here to offer something that you never expected, friendship." She gestured, and holographic displays appeared throughout the hall, showing a symbol that none of the aliens had ever seen before: two hands clasping in greeting, surrounded by stars of every color, representing every species in the galaxy. "We call ourselves the Terran Cooperative," Chun explained, "and we invite every member of the Galactic Dominion to join us. Not as subjects, not as conquered peoples, but as equals. Not as servants, but as partners." Ambassador Thelvok raised his hand hesitantly, his large eyes blinking with confusion. "Admiral Chun, forgive my ignorance, but I do not understand. You have the power to destroy us utterly. Why would you offer equality instead of dominion? What do you gain from this arrangement?" Chun smiled, and it was the same warm smile that seemed to be characteristic of all humans who had been touched by the wisdom of the quiet millennium. "What do we gain?" she repeated thoughtfully. "We gain friends. We gain partners. We gain the chance to watch your species grow and learn and become everything you are capable of being. We gain the satisfaction of helping, which is its own reward." "But there must be something else," General Vrax insisted, his warrior mind unable to accept such generosity at face value. "There must be some hidden advantage, some long-term strategy. No species gives away power without expecting something in return." Elder Marcus Webb stepped forward to stand beside Admiral Chun, his presence a reminder of the power that humanity chose not to use. "General, you are thinking like a conqueror because that is all you have ever known," he said gently. "In your experience, power is only used to dominate and control. But there is another way to see power as a tool for lifting others up instead of pushing them down. During our 1,000 years of isolation," he continued, "we learned that the greatest joy comes not from ruling over others, but from watching them flourish. The greatest victory is not defeating your enemies, but transforming them into allies. The greatest power is not the ability to destroy, but the ability to create." High Arbiter Zixthel, who had been sitting silently among the Valkorian delegation since his humbling encounter with humanity, finally rose to speak. His four eyes were different now, not filled with arrogance and hunger, but with something that might have been the beginning of understanding. "I came to this system intending to enslave your species," he admitted, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. "I saw your peace as weakness, your restraint as cowardice. I was wrong, more wrong than I have ever been about anything in my life." He turned to face his fellow Dominion leaders, his posture straight despite the weight of his confession. "These humans could have destroyed our entire fleet in seconds. They could have invaded our worlds and forced us to bow before their power. They could have done to us exactly what we planned to do to them. But instead they offered mercy and wisdom and friendship. I do not fully understand why they made this choice," he continued, "but I know that I want to learn. I know that I want to understand what kind of species chooses kindness over cruelty when they have the power to choose either. I believe the Valkorian Empire should accept humanity's offer." Murmurs of shock spread through the assembly. Zixthel had been the most aggressive voice calling for human conquest, and now he was advocating for cooperation. If even he had been transformed by this experience, what did that mean for everyone else? One by one, other species began to voice their support. The Thornians, the Crethians, the Serpentine, all of them had expected to share in the spoils of human subjugation, and all of them now chose to embrace a different future. When the final vote was counted, every single member species of the Galactic Dominion had voted to accept humanity's invitation. The war that had lasted only hours had given birth to an alliance that would last for ages. In the years that followed, the galaxy transformed in ways that nobody had thought possible. Human teachers traveled to alien worlds, sharing knowledge and technology at a pace that each species could handle. Human doctors cured diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia. Human engineers helped build wonders that once seemed like impossible dreams. But more than technology, humanity shared its wisdom. They taught the other species what they had learned during their 1,000 years of growth. The cooperation was stronger than competition. That compassion was more powerful than cruelty. That the measure of a civilization was not how much it could take, but how much it could give. Generations passed, and the children of former enemies played together on worlds that had once been battlegrounds. Species that had fought each other for thousands of years learned to see each other as family. The galaxy that had known only conflict began to know peace. And when younger species, newly emerged into the stars, asked why the great powers of the galaxy were so generous and kind, the answer was always the same. Because long ago, the humans taught us a secret, the elders would say. They showed us that true strength is not about domination, but about lifting others up. They showed us that the greatest legacy any civilization can leave is not an empire built on fear, but a community built on love. But why did the humans become that way? The young ones would ask. What made them choose kindness when they could have chosen conquest? And the elders would smile with the wisdom of ages and reply. Because 1,000 years before any of us met them, they looked at themselves honestly and did not like what they saw. They realized they were becoming monsters, and they chose instead to become something beautiful. They spent a millennium learning to be worthy of their own power, and when they emerged, they used that power to help everyone else do the same. The old veteran on Mars, the one who had laughed when war was declared, lived to see his great Dash grandchildren grow up in a galaxy at peace. On his final day, surrounded by family both human and alien, he smiled with satisfaction at the universe humanity had helped create. "We did it," he whispered to his equally old wife, who had been with him through everything. "We actually did it. We became the good guys." She squeezed his hand and smiled back. "We were always the good guys," she replied. "We just needed 1,000 years to prove it." The 1,000-year peace had ended, but it had ended only so that something greater could begin. Not the peace of isolation, but the peace of connection. Not the peace of hiding, but the peace of sharing. Not the peace of one species, but the peace of an entire galaxy united in hope and friendship. And it had all started with a simple choice, the choice to be better than they had to be, stronger than their worst impulses, kinder than anyone expected. That was humanity's gift to the stars.